Okay, thank y'all for coming. On June 27th, 2022, at approximately 7:22 a.m., a 911 call came into the Harrison County Dispatch advising that a lady walking in her driveway at 11739 Highway 80 West in Hallsville had a subject walked up behind her with a shotgun, placed it to her back, and was speaking in Spanish to her. The subject then grabbed a hold of her clothing, tried to pull her into a barn area that was located on the property. She instinctively fought back. She did not allow the subject to pull her into the barn. When she freed herself of his grasp, she fled into the house for safety and called 911. Harrison County units and Hallsville PD units responded to the location. Once at the location, we were told that the subject was possibly hiding in the barn area and was armed. We set a perimeter up around the barn area and the property area. We had a drone on site that we were flying to assure that, if he was outside of the barn area, we would know that before we got up there. While this was being set up at this residence, the subject was actually spotted by a Union Pacific employee running down the tracks behind the post office in Hallsville. The railroad tracks run behind this property. He had apparently got on the tracks and ran back into town in Hallsville. Units then responded to that area. The subject was still carrying a shotgun at that time. Chief Freeman with Hallsville PD actually spotted the subject on the railroad tracks just as he was fleeing off the back of the tracks into some woods. Obviously, the perimeter was moved to that location, widened out, and a search was conducted of that area. Throughout the search process, there are many acres of land and woods and creeks in that area. The subject was spotted several times during the search efforts, and each time he was spotted, we would move the perimeter according to directions he was moving. As the perimeter tightened, the subject pushed himself back towards Highway 80. He was later seen crossing the tracks from the deputies that were stationed down the tracks, watching the tracks. Several hundred yards down from a deputy, he crossed. He tried to get out to 80. Couldn't tell if he went across Highway 80 to the north side or not. Our canines were on scene and deployed in that area, which brought the subject into custody. He was found by Canine Pato and his partner, Sergeant Harmon, and Investigator Livingston. Canine Lobo and Lieutenant Argenbright were also on scene. They were working the wood lines from opposite ends to the middle. When the canine alerted, Sergeant Harmon told the suspect to show his hands. He wasn't doing so. The brush was extremely thick and he couldn't see him very well. When he broke through the brush, the subject was pointing the shotgun at Sergeant Harmon. They had a very brief standoff. The subject dropped the gun and was taken into custody. The whole ordeal came into dispatch at 7:22 a.m. At 11:58 a.m., he was taken into custody. We had many people involved in this and want to recognize them, but one of the biggest was Union Pacific. Union Pacific understood the severity of the ordeal we were dealing with. They stopped their trains, so we didn't have to worry about the tracks as much, and helped with our efforts in keeping that perimeter and that vision to assure he didn't try to get on a train as it was coming through. Texas DPS also responded to the scene along with one Longview PD officer who lived in Hallsville, found out what was going on and came out to help, and we're grateful for that. The subject was later identified as Raul Torres. Raul was charged with aggravated assault public servant. aggravated kidnapping with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault deadly weapon. When the call originally came in, we were under the impression of the first part that we heard that he was attempting to rob the complainant victim. It was later determined that that was not his intentions, and as the investigation goes on, and we will reveal more of that at a later time. We have learned a little bit about Raul Torres. Torres was caught in August of 2018 for entering the country without inspection. The charge was dismissed or whatever. November 2019, he was caught again for entry without inspection. He was then sentenced to 6 days by a U.S. magistrate in Del Rio, Texas, and he was deported from Eagle Pass, Texas, back to Mexico. Raul has obviously since re-entered the United States. He has an immigration hold as of 6:28 a.m. this morning. Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs are looking at further charges from ours with him. The complainant in this case refused to be a statistic. She refused to give in, and she had the will to fight. In doing so, probably saved her life. She fled into the house and locked the door and immediately called authorities, which is exactly, if the case or scenario allows you to, is what we want. Gave us our chance to locate the subject. We had hours and hours in the woods yesterday in creek bottoms and other such places. He covered a lot of ground, and these guys, along with the other departments, worked tirelessly, and we were in no position to walk away until he was caught. We just couldn't leave somebody like that loose over there. He was an extreme threat and safety to the public. I do believe that he was desperate enough, personally, that somebody else was going to get hurt. I don't know all of his intentions, but none of them that I've found thus far were good intentions. What just happened? We're back. The shotgun was later discovered that it came out of a burglary in the early morning hours of the same day, June 27, 2022, Monday morning, prior to going to the residence in Hallsville where this event occurred. He had burglarized a location at 801 North 7th Street in Longview, Texas, where he obtained and stole the shotgun that he used in Hallsville later that morning. So Raul has told investigators that he's been back in the country for about 3 months, and we have obviously transferred that information to Homeland Security for their investigation. Our district attorney was on scene yesterday, very helpful for many hours, and in the charging aspect of this subject. Reed, do you want to say anything? Welcome to. Okay. He and his investigators also responded due to the nature of the incident. His investigator was very helpful in helping pursue this subject along with the other departments. We used many tools yesterday. The biggest one, boots on the ground, if you will. The amount of officers that we had out there helped contain the perimeter and kept the perimeter moving as it should have, as he was spotted moving. The use of our drones came in very handy. You could see a lot more acreage and a lot more places to clear with the drones. There was a lot of open pastures. I believe the guy I talked to said the pasture that was right behind those tracks was around 500 acres, had several creeks, it went back a long way. And then obviously our canines. And this is just one more example of why all those tools in law enforcement are so handy and so needed. The cooperation with Union Pacific was great. We did do a Region 1 BOLO for Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas, just in case this subject got out of our perimeter of who we believed he was. The investigation from this point is obviously ongoing. We are still working on it, and further information as can be released, we'll release at a later date. Y'all have any questions?
Was this considered a long track for a canine?
Yes. Almost 5 hours is hard on a dog. They get hot just like we do, and several times they were, cooled down, watered, and put back in the unit for a little while to cool down, and then re-go again. At the time they found him, they had been out for a while, and one thing the canine doesn't lose is his drive, and that's the handler's job to know when he's had enough, and because he's not going to turn around and tell you. The canine was walking the woods where the subject was located. There was actually a bit of woods between 80 and the tracks that goes all the way down from Ward Creek up to about Pool Chevron in Hallsville. They were combing those tracks, or that bit of woods. It was extremely thick and undergrowth and things like that, and he was laying in that undergrowth in those woods. But as they went by, he said that his dog just immediately turned left, and he knew he had, just the way the dog went at it, he knew he was there. Again, told him to show him his hands, and they had their standoff for just a minute, and he was taken into custody without being injured. So.
Was the Hallsville canine used as well?
We didn't know, sir. We used both of. We have 4 here at the sheriff's office, and 2 of ours were out there.
When you said the DA, you were talking about the Harrison County DA, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what sort of situation would warrant them coming out, since you said based on the incident?
In my opinion, is his regard for public safety. He's compassionate about his job, and he wants to know what's going on. As in any scenario, when you're, and our DA is a past police officer, when things like this heighten, you want to do whatever you can to do your part, and I think he does that well. He does a good job of not over intervening or over pushing on the case. He just takes back the facts. He helps from the side wherever he can. Obviously, with questionable charges and correct charges and things like that, it's very handy to have them there.
Sheriff, I have a question. Were there any injuries reported, and did the lady, did she escape unharmed?
She did. She did escape unharmed. She's fine, shook up, but obviously to be expected. But she's okay. No injuries reported, and even Raul Torres was taken to the Christus Good Shepherd Marshall, where he was examined and released for. We were worried about dehydration. He'd been on the run for a while, but he was fine.
And was he residing here in Harrison County?
From what we understand, he was living on the streets in Longview. And quite honestly, I'll add to that, homeless people can be very hard to find, and especially one like this that is not from here. He's just been here a few months. He's didn't really have a name on the street for anybody to help you with, and no home to go find him at. So it was crucial that he was found while this pursuit was active.
Aside from the burglary, to get the gun, do you know of any other incidents that he was involved in?
Not at this time, no.
Was any of the general public in contact with him at all?
Not that we're aware of. We did put it out on our page when we were looking for him. We have quite a bit of followers within the county, and tried to get that word out to people who live in that area, you know, to lock up or just give them a heads up of what's going on. Try to control the traffic and the curiosity and get ahead of it to help us not have to deal with that side of it while we're working. No, but he was armed with the shotgun, and he also had I believe what appeared to be a kitchen knife on his person.
Did you have to shut down Highway 80?
No, not at that time, no.
How did y'all notify the neighborhood of what was going on?
Our Facebook page, and then obviously word spreads very, very fast. We went to the best length we could go to be as short manpowered and busy as we were. There was nobody left here. Everybody that was available was in the woods. I mean, we only have so many resources, so many people. That being said, the quickest and easiest thing to do from the scene was to notify the Facebook, just to help with getting the word out. You know, it isn't 100%, but it gets some.
That didn't seem to be a really populated area.
Hallsville's.
Well, I think where he was at.
No, we were actually east of Hallsville. The land we were on went between the tracks, just east of Hallsville, all the way back to was that Galilee? To Galilee Road. So it's probably a 1.5, 2 miles straight through that property. So we were more down behind the sewer plant.
Yeah, that's what I understood. One through the plant. So there's just not a lot of houses back there.
No, there's a lot of fields and creeks, and now you're coming into some housing developments in the other side of that property, but not where we had him contained at.
Were you able to actually spot him with the drone?
Yes, 1 or 2 different times actually. He stepped out of the woods at a spot, and the drone spotted him. Of course, he went right back in, and it's hard to see with that cover above them. But if they come out into that open area, you can see them.
Did he ever point the gun at the drone?
Not that I'm aware of. Anything else? All right. Thank y'all.